Thursday was a shitty day even before the aliens came. Mary and Ben had gotten a spat over breakfast, over the caterer for their wedding, which was really over money, and also how irresponsible Mary was with it, and also over how bossy Ben could be. The spat was also over nothing, but it was also over everything that was wrong with Mary and with Ben. Mary was angry about the spat, and also her own irresponsibility, and also Ben's overbearing ways, so she didn't kiss him goodbye. She felt foolish and guilty nearly as soon as the door had shut behind her, but she was already a half an hour late for work, so she didn't turn back to say she was sorry, even though she was, or kiss Ben on his lips, even though kissing Ben was always a marvelous thing. Instead, she ran, her purse blacking against her side, her feet slipping in her shoes that were at least a half size too big, to her car, which made noises like it didn't want to start. "Asshole," Mary said to no one, but also to herself and also to the car. But the car did start, and Mary careened to her office, hurrying, rushing, and running a red light so she could sit quietly at a desk filled with tasks she didn't care about. It was 6:30 when she left the office for the day, her jaw sore from clenching it. This time, her car really wouldn't start, which seemed like a problem for tomorrow, and so she took the bus home, which she hated, the humans crammed inside uncomfortably, armpit to shoulder, knees to knees. Someone was listening to a pair of headphones that seemed to function more as speakers than headphones, and so Mary was serenaded by death metal for most of her commute, whether she liked it or not. As the bus trundled to her neighborhood, Mary thought about how happy she was to see Ben and also how nervous she was to see Ben because of that morning and because of the things she had said and the blame she had laid. They'd be married soon, Ben and Mary, and she was happy and nervous about that as well, and also happy and nervous about the invitations she decided to make by hand. She'd work on them that night, she resolved, and then maybe she'd feel less nervous so that maybe she could feel happier. Mary got off the bus and decided to take the long way home through the park so that she could look at the trees and try to think about trying to be happier. It was a lovely park, but an arduous walk, and Mary could feel the sweat pooling on her lower back. But it was lovely anyway, what with the trees and the relative quiet. She was thinking about how many more invitations she needed to make when a light, brighter than any other light she had ever seen, so bright she could hear it, so bright that even when she shut her eyes against the brightness, all she could see was the white, the never-ending white, the white that burned. "I'll go blind," Mary thought, and then she thought, "I'll never see Ben again." Mary was so preoccupied with Ben and with the whiteness that she did not feel it, not at first, as her whole body was lifted slowly off the ground. One of her shoes slipped off, and she heard the sound it made as it hit the concrete beneath her. And it was only in hearing its thump that she realized she was not on the ground anymore. She was airborne, and that she was rising. "Welcome," a voice said. "You are now aboard a transgalactic shuttle. You are disoriented." "Yes," Mary said. She was also nauseous. She was also pretty sure she was having a psychotic breakdown, and that now there was no way Ben would marry her, not now that she was objectively crazy. "You are an Earthling," the voice said. "Adult female human." Slowly, vision returned to Mary, and she saw that she was in a vast room of black expanse that stretched infinitely in all directions. But she was also crowded and tight against her skin. The voice she saw came from a creature that was human-shaped, but not human at all, more like a squid or a phone booth, but humanoid, if she had to classify it. "I'm 30, Mary said, as if that mattered. "You are aware," the alien said, "that you have the ability to perceive color." Mary nodded. "And you are aware that you see many colors, such as blue, such as red, and such as green." "Yes," Mary said, "and pink." Pink was her favorite, pale, pale pink, like the pink on her wedding invitations. Invitations she'd never said now that she was objectively crazy or abducted by aliens or whatever. "Imagine the world with more colors." "I can't," Mary said, because it was true. "Exactly. But imagine now that there are infinitely more colors than you have seen before, unfathomable new colors, because this is the truth, Earthling. It is true that there are infinitely more colors than you can see, which is why to you your sky is blue. But to me it looks more like what you would call orange, except at sunset. And then it is more like what you would call silver, and also what you would call green, and also a whole array of colors for which you have no name, nor even an approximation. Why are you telling me all of this? Because the limitations with which you perceive color are not at all unlike the limitations with which we perceive emotions. We have the capability of transgalactic travel, and one of the many ways we use this ability is to collect as much data as we can about what your kind call feelings. Today, for instance, you have had emotions. Is this assumption correct? Yes, Mary said, because it was true. Tell us what feelings you felt. Be as specific as you can. And so Mary did. She explained that she was mad at Ben and also at herself, and she was nervous about her wedding and she was happy to be wed. That she had been angry because she was ashamed and resentful for being made to feel ashamed, and then even more ashamed because she had not, in fact, been forced by anyone except herself to feel ashamed. The shame was a result of her own choices, which were often poor. Mary explained that she was in love, and being in love meant thinking of that person, even as you're abducted by aliens. But today you are angry with him, the alien interrupted. Yes, Mary told the alien, yes, and she was more angry with him than she would be with anyone else in the whole world, because it is a terrifying thing to be seen by the person you love and to know that you are not perfect and that they can see that you are not perfect, and how impossible it is to believe that they still could love you even with all your shameful, obvious imperfection, and how it feels impossible that they would not leave you because of it, and how that is really what made her angry. It was, at its core, the fear that she was not good enough, and that Ben could see that. It was fear of loss. I felt love today, Mary clarified. That is as unfathomable to me as a silver and green sunrise likely seems to you, the alien said. Yes, Mary said, because it was the truth. Thank you for your participation in our survey. You have proven to be an acceptable data point. You will now be returned to your life at the precise moment you were taken. It will be as if nothing happened, and as your temporary transgalactic hosts, we thank you for your time as well as for your candor. You will find that though you are able to recall this conversation, you will not be able to tell others from your planet about your experience today. Sorry. We apologize for any inconvenience and certain disorientation. The alien began to glide away in the way that it did, and its body receded into the blackness that surrounded them. Wait, Mary called after the alien. What color are my eyes? She had always thought that they were brown, and that this was a boring answer. Maybe, she hoped, they were gold and pink, or something marvelous. They are brown, the alien told them. And before the disappointment could settle in, she blinked, and she was back. Her shoe lay turned on its side on the path next to her. She picked it up, but did not put it back on, just limped home, the shoe in her hand a confirmation of what had just happened. When she got home, Ben was making dinner like he did every day. Why are you only wearing one shoe? He asked. Mary walked up behind him and circled her arms around his waist and rested her cheek against his back. And at her touch, she could feel him relax, enough to tell her that he was just as glad to be held as he was to hold. I'm sorry, she said. They kissed, and it was a marvelous thing to kiss, marvelous like alien abduction and sunsets and the color green, but also marvelous like every Thursday when you are a human in love.